Despite some incredible starting pitching as of late, it's really been this Orioles offense that has led this team to the amazing start so far in 2024. Now, there are some changes in philosophy, but also some specific players have made some specific adjustments, and we'll get into those. Why four specific players have gotten better at the plate this year. That's coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
There, Orioles fans. Today is Tuesday, May 7th, 2024, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and coming up on today's episode, got no game on Monday night. Orioles were off after sweeping the Reds on the road over the weekend and decided to do something a little bit different. We're going to take a look at four Orioles hitters. They would be Ryan O'Hearn, Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, and Jordan Westburg. All have been huge contributors to a top three offense in Major League Baseball. And all of them have gotten better, at least through play on May 6th, than they were in total in 2023. And they've all made adjustments to get to that next level. So today, I know it's a fairly small sample size, a month and change, but we're going to look into what each of those four guys have done this year, how they've gotten better, and if they can continue it throughout this 2024 season. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb and use code all lowercase LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. So again, no game on Monday. The O's get the off day before embarking on a quick little two-game series in DC against the Nats that starts tonight. But I thought I'd look into some of these great starts that the Orioles are having because, quite frankly, the O's have been awesome offensively this year, leading the league in homers. They are up there in all the top categories. They're basically in the top three in all of the batted ball categories and the power categories and the batting average. And really the only thing they're not doing is walking at a high clip. They're actually in the bottom three in Major League Baseball in walk rate. And it's been interesting to see similar changes like that have happened to a lot of different hitters. And it's not like the O's were one of the best teams in baseball at walking last year, but there seems to be an organizational and a team-wide approach this season that we're going to be more aggressive at the plate. We are going to give up some walks, but we're going to trade those walks for extra base hits. And that is always a good trade. And so far, so good. They lead the league in homers. They're 23-11, and they've got, without a doubt, a top five offense in all of baseball. Whereas last year, the O's were pretty good offensively, but they were not a top five offensive team. So I picked out four players who I thought kind of embodied what the Orioles have done this year and took a look at the changes those four players have made to get better in 2024. Now, it's going to be a little bit of a different episode only because I'm going to be using some more graphics. So if you're listening to the podcast, don't worry. Still going to get all the information you need. And of course, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and a review wherever you listen. But if you're here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel, this might be where you want to be because I'll have some graphics up on the screen about some of the things we're talking about. And of course, if you like what you see, like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles podcast on YouTube. But my first player I want to talk about is Gunnar Henderson. I want to start this off with the fact it's not like Gunnar Henderson went from a bad player in 2023 to a good player this year. Gunnar Henderson was the 2023 American League Rookie of the Year. He had a fantastic season. But if you remember, he struggled a lot in the first 2 months of the year before he got going. And I think we could all agree, even by the end of the year, he's still had yet to reach his potential. End of the season with a 123 WRC+. Remember, WRC+ is a park-adjusted stat that really tries to bring together all aspects of hitting for power, hitting for average, getting on base, everything together, and put it into one stat where 100 is league average. So at 123, he was 23% better than a league average hitter in 2023. This year, a 159 WRC+ and has started all 34 games so far for the Orioles this year. He was really good last year. He's gone to great so far through the first 5-6 weeks of this season. So what's been the biggest change for Gunnar Henderson? It's really been his success versus left-handed pitching. If there was one thing that Gunnar really did struggle with in his first full big league season last year, it was facing left-handed pitching. If you sent a lefty out there, you had a really good chance to get Gunnar Henderson out. He hit only 209 with a 293 on base and a 324 slugging. He was not good against lefties, a 75 WRC plus, I should say, against left-handed pitching. Now, he still walked an okay amount and at a 25% strikeout rate. It wasn't like he was K'ing a lot. And actually, when you go to this year, he's actually walking less and striking out more against left-handers. So you would think, wow, did he get even worse overall against lefties? No, he did not, because staying in line with kind of the Orioles' overall approach offensively, he got more aggressive against left-handers and it ended up with more damage being done. So despite more strikeouts and less walks, he now has a 296 average with a 381 on base and a 556 slugging. That's a 166 WRC plus against lefties this year. After being pretty bad against left-handers last year, Gunnar has actually been better against left-handed pitching than against right-handed pitching so far in 2024. So you may ask, okay, how is he doing it? Like, what changes do you make? Guys can get better incrementally every year, but how do you get that much better as a 22-year-old against same-handed pitching that had flummoxed you all of your first year in the big leagues? Well, the big thing is he's not chasing out of the strike zone as much against left-handers. Good lefties are still getting him to swing and miss at some pitches inside the zone, and that's still why he's striking out a good amount against lefties. But if you look at 2023 for how left-handed pitchers attacked Gunnar Henderson, this will be our first chart of the day coming up on the screen. They had a pretty simple plan of attack against Gunnar Henderson. You can see the graph there. Gunnar Henderson would be on the right side of the graph. That's where he'd be standing at the plate. And they basically went with a lot of stuff down and away to Henderson. It was essentially sliders and curveballs that were out of the strike zone, down and away. And then every so often they'd go with a fastball up and in to try and get Henderson to chase. They would try to change the eye level as much as they possibly could. You look at now 2024, where pitches are being thrown to Gunnar Henderson, it's fairly similar. You see that red area. Most of the pitches he's getting breaking balls down and away from lefties. And then he's getting really the second most amount of pitches are fastballs up and in because they are trying to find a hole in his swing. And the really, really big difference for Gunnar Henderson is now we switch to 2023. Okay, what pitches is he swinging at the most? And you can see those up and in fastballs. He just could not lay off of those pitches. And even down and away, he did a solid job of laying off. But in general, all of those up and in fastballs, he was going after them at all times. You're seeing those pitches are out of the strike zone. He was swinging at over 50% of pitches that were up and out of the strike zone that he faced against lefties. Now let's go to 2024, and you see the big difference. That percentage of fastballs up and in down to just 31% of them he's swinging at. And he's only swinging at 14% of those breaking balls that miss down and away, that kind of sweep away left on left. So what does that mean? He's getting more pitches to drive. And you see those red hot zones. When he's getting a pitch middle in, he's swinging more than 90% of the time. He's being more aggressive. And guess what? It's working. That was one of the reasons Gunnar struggled the first 2 months of last year. He was just too passive. Now he's being aggressive and he's putting good swings on the baseballs, and he is doing damage, just driving better pitches. Those fastballs up and in, those are really tough to get to. Instead, he's just getting better pitches. And again, thank you to Baseball Savant. All of those graphs and all the graphs today are from Baseball Savant and StatCast, the MLB website. But he's just said, look, I'm not going to swing at those pitches. And if a lefty can dot a fastball up and in for a called strike three, then more power to him, because he's basically saying, I know I can't do damage on those pitches. I'm going to wait for a better pitch in the zone. And he has attacked those pitches and done incredibly well. And he's not necessarily walking more. He's just getting better pitches to hit and jumping on. Maybe he gets one pitch to hit per at bat. He wasn't jumping on those as much last year. He is doing it in 2024. Now I want to move on to Jordan Westburg, a guy who came up in 2023 about midway through the season and was a solid contributor, 97 WRC plus down the stretch last year, but he has turned into an everyday star for the Orioles in 2024, a 144 WRC plus so far in 2024. And the big change for Gunnar Henderson, or excuse me, for Jordan Westburg, is he is attacking the pitches away in the zone. What's really interesting with Jordan Westburg is that pitchers kind of found his weakness last year. If they kept it away, whether it was a fastball or a breaking ball, as long as they were on the outer third of the zone or even outside of the zone away from the righty, He just couldn't get to it. If he did, he would pop it up. He would roll it over to second base. He's a hitter who tries to use the whole field, but he was maybe trying a little too much to use the whole field. He was saying, well, maybe he wasn't thinking this, but his results were showing this. He was more likely to just hit a ground ball to second base on a pitch on the outside half of the plate instead of really trying to drive it into center field or drive it into left field for a base hit. Yeah, we want hitters who drive it to all fields, but some guys just need that approach of pulling fly balls. And statistically, pulling fly balls gives you a much better chance of getting a hit and doing damage than hitting fly balls to the opposite way. Now, one thing that he's done well is barrel up more pitches to right field. His line drive percentage this year for Jordan Westburg on pitches to right field, 22% last year, 29% this year. Basically what that means is when he's getting a hittable fastball on the outside part of the plate, and Westburg, who does like to use the entire field, he's hitting it harder and he's hitting more line drives instead of lazy fly balls or grounders to the right side. And that is ending up in more hits. And we saw it in the game on Sunday, just roped a line drive 2-run homer out to right field in the first inning to put the O's up 3-0. We've seen that a lot of times from Jordan Westburg, but just in general, he is doing more damage on the outside of the plate. Here is a graph from 2023 for Jordan Westburg. Again, he would be on the left side of your screen here where he's standing at the plate. And you can see on those pitches on kind of the right side of the screen, that would be the outside part of the strike zone and out of the strike zone. This is his average exit velocity. You're looking at up and away, just 62 miles an hour, basically popping everything up. Down and away, 79 miles per hour, basically hitting slow ground balls to second base. Now let's flip it to the 2024 graph, and you see the gigantic change. Pitches up and away, anywhere from 90 to 100 miles per hour off the bat. He's hitting scorching line drives the other way when he gets a pitch up and away. Even down and away, he's upped it to 85, and that gives you a better shot of maybe that grounder or that line drive does find right field. And if you're throwing it to Westburg middle away, he's basically hitting it hard every single time. And when you add that in with the fact that when you look at what he does in the middle part of the plate and the inside part of the plate, where he has always dominated, even last year, that is where you see him just taking a weakness in his game, being able to cover the plate a little bit more with his swing and doing damage on the outside part of the plate. We'll see another graph here. This is the xWOBA for Jordan Westburg. As you can see, just really struggled on the outside part of the plate, was basically only hitting pitches that were middle in. That's in 2023. But in 2024, you see all the red? Yeah, he is driving the baseball a whole lot more on the outside part of the plate. And it wasn't just breaking balls away, because you would think, oh, pitchers are probably just throwing him sliders and curveballs that start on the outer part of the plate, break off the plate. He's just swinging and missing and chasing too many of them. That wasn't even the case. He was seeing a lot of fastballs on the outer part of the plate that would have been strikes. He just couldn't get to them. He would either swing at them and pop them up or swing and miss at those fastballs on the outer half. But this year, he's hitting his fastballs even harder, which is fantastic to see for Jordan Westburg. And he is also doing more damage. On fastballs this year, he is slugging .576, whereas he slugged just .411 against fastballs last season. And overall, he had always hit the ball hard when it was middle, when it was in, but when it was outside, he just couldn't. Now he's doing it better, and he's up to a 52% overall hard hit rate, which is elite. That's in the top 10 percentile of all of Major League Baseball this year. And all he's done is said, I'm going to do a better job of covering the outside part of the plate, hitting it hard to right field, and he's become a better hitter so far this year. But want to get to two more guys who have really stepped up their game this season. And it'll be two guys who, listen, they were both great in 2023. We thought, can they really take a step forward? And then Ryan O'Hearn and Adley Rutschman, they both have this year. I'll tell you how they've done it kind of in opposite ways coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, truly the most enjoyable way to play daily fantasy sports. You don't want to miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond to your Prize Picks entries, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs. You just take your pick of more or less. That is it, more or less, and then you add them to your Prize Picks entry. You can do it for baseball. You can do it for the NBA playoffs as well. You can win up to 100 times your money just saying, all right, Nikola Jokic, rebounds, 7.5, more or less. It's all you got to pick. You get it right, you win money. It's super easy and it's super fun. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100 at PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And today's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Monopoly Go. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. And the more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get, like unique stickers, cool playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. That's Monopoly Go. Game on. So after the Orioles' off day on Monday, as they sit in first place in the AL East with, you could make it strong, they've got the best offense in the American League this year, and it's been helped by some great adjustments that some players have made. Talked about Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westburg already. Now let's get to Ryan O'Hearn. And you talk about Ryan O'Hearn's adjustments. We heard a lot about them last year because of all the changes O'Hearn made to go from a middling player in Kansas City who was ready to probably go play in Korea to a guy who became the number 3 and 4 hitter for a team that won 101 games last year. And there were a lot of questions about Ryan O'Hearn coming into 2024. Now, there was no questions about him making the team. We knew he would have to lose his spot. Like there was a spot for him in the lineup until he lost it. But there were a lot of questions like, hey, he was bad for 4 years in Kansas City and then was good for 1 year in Baltimore. Can he really repeat it? He's got guys like Heston Kjerstad right on his tail for his playing time. Can he really produce enough to keep that spot? He had a 118 WRC plus in 2023. That was great. If he is producing at that level right now, he's still got his roster spot. But you know what Ryan O'Hearn said? He said, I'm going to get even better somehow in my second year as an Oriole. And by WRC plus at 173, he has been the Orioles' best qualified hitter so far this season. That is how good he has been. So what is the big change for Ryan O'Hearn? He is just not chasing at all. And it's a little different from the changes that other Orioles have made. We've talked about how the Orioles in general, they are swinging more, they are taking less, they are chasing a little bit more, but they're just being more aggressive. And while walks have gone down, strikeouts have gone up a little bit, but they are doing more damage, hitting for more power, and the offense has been better for it. The interesting thing with Ryan O'Hearn is that he's kind of gone the opposite direction, but has still had the same incredibly positive results. His batted ball profile is a little better. Don't get me wrong. He's hitting the ball a little bit harder. He's doing a little more damage when he hits it. It's all ticked up a bit, but it was really good last year. It's not like he's made some amazing stride again in that. The differences have been what pitches he's swinging at. So last year, O'Hearn did a lot of things good, but he basically didn't walk. Just a 4.1% walk rate last year. That is minuscule compared to a 22% strikeout rate, which isn't bad at all. It's not like elite, but it's not terrible. This year, his walk rate has more than doubled. He is up to a 10.7% walk rate. Basically, is the best hitter on the Orioles in terms of drawing walks. And oh yeah, he's just not striking out anymore. Again, his strikeouts were not a problem last year. It was not a problem issue. His 8.3% strikeout rate this season not only is lowest on the Orioles, but if you rank players with at least 80 plate appearances so far this Major League season, only 2 players in baseball have struck out at a lower rate than Ryan O'Hearn. And those 2 players are basically unicorns. They are Luis Arraez, who has won back-to-back batting titles and is known for just hitting everything and not striking out. It was just traded to the Padres. And Steven Kwan, who is kind of a lesser-known version of just that kind of player. Left fielder for the Guardians, who doesn't strike out at all, just continuously puts the ball in play. Those are both all-star level players and don't really hit for power, though. That's the thing with Arraez and Kwan. They don't hit homers. They hit singles and doubles, and they get on base, and they don't strike out. The difference is O'Hearn walks more than those guys and hits for way more power than those 2 guys do. Now, I don't think O'Hearn is going to sustain an 8% strikeout rate for the entire year. It's pretty much impossible to do that unless you are a hitter like Steven Kwan or Luis Arraez. But you combine the power and batted ball profile he has with that low of a strikeout rate, you're looking at like a perennial all-star player. And I saw somebody say it. I can't remember who it was. Don't want to give the wrong credit on Orioles Twitter, talking about how they could see Ryan O'Hearn being like the next version of that late stage breakout waves of hitters we saw 5, 6, 7 years ago. The Max Muncy and Chris Taylors in LA, the JD Martinez types just kind of changing teams. Martinez goes to the Tigers and figures it out. Muncy and Taylor go to the Dodgers and figure it out, become these great power hitters. That really could be what Ryan O'Hearn is. He's just not chasing out of the strike zone. His chase rate, he was swinging at 31% of pitches out of the zone last year. That is down to 19% so far this year. 19% chase rate is elite. That is one of the lowest in Major League Baseball. Just overall, he's not swinging as much. Swung at 51% of the pitches he saw last year, has only swung at 41% of the pitches he has seen this year. Now, you might be thinking, if you're not swinging as much, can't you not do as much damage? Usually that's correct. That's why the Orioles across the board, the other guys, are generally swinging more. Yeah, they're giving up some walks, but they're getting more doubles, triples, and homers. For Ryan O'Hearn, you can see here on this graph, this is the swing percentage by the parts of the strike zone in 2023. And as you can see, he was just swinging at strikes, but he was kind of chasing. When guys would pitch him in, he really could not lay off. Now look at his swing percentage graph from 2024. And again, shout out to Baseball Savant for these statistics. Look at those boxes outside of the strike zone. They're all at 23% or lower. And look at specifically inside. Again, back to 2023. He was swinging at about 40% of the pitches he saw off the plate inside. This year, that number is down to 15% of the pitches that are off the plate inside to Ryan O'Hearn he is swinging at. He's taking everything that misses in. And when you see what he's doing in his hot zones at the top of the zone, he's swinging at everything. And guess what? That's good, because middle at the top of the zone, he has not taken a pitch in that hot zone. And it's one of the places where he does the most damage. So more power to you, Ryan O'Hearn. Swing at those good pitches to hit. Layoffs the ones you don't want to. And it's okay if you walk, because here's the thing. Not a lot of O's are walking right now. So if O'Hearn's going to be the guy to walk, that's fine. Someone else will drive you in. But he's also going to get big time power when needed. He's still hitting the ball incredibly hard, barreling it up at like the 98th and 99th percentile. With this change for Ryan O'Hearn, walking way more, striking out way less, this is like an all-star level hitter. It is not out of the question, despite the fact that he plays first base, and that can sometimes be tough, first base DH, to make an all-star team. It's not out of the question, if he keeps this up, for Ryan O'Hearn to be an all-star this year. Like, people were talking about, oh, O'Hearn was nice, but, Kjerstad's going to take his spot. Like, oh, no. O'Hearn could be here for years to come. He's got a team option on his contract now to bring him back for 2025 as well. If he's doing this, they are easily bringing him back for 2025 and maybe even beyond, because he is one of those late-stage breakout guys like a JD Martinez. The data is showing that he might be, and he's still making changes that are making him better. Think about what he could do next offseason as well. It is fun to watch Ryan O'Hearn work. And then the last guy I want to get to is Adley Rutschman. Now, the changes for Adley Rutschman are a little more simple, and you could argue in the long run, these could actually be bad changes for Adley Rutschman. But right now, they are working. Rutschman had a 127 WRC plus last year. This year, it's at 142. So it's not like he's taking this gigantic step, but he's been better offensively at the plate so far this year than he was entirely last year. What is he doing differently? Well, he's kind of been a plate discipline darling his first 2 years in the big leagues. He's been hunting walks. He's had 13 and 14% walk rates. One of the best batter's eyes in all of Major League Baseball. He's been known for that. He just gets on base. His walk rate was 13.4% last year. That's pretty elite. This year, it is 5.4%. That is in the bottom 20% of all hitters in Major League Baseball. You're like, what happened to Adley Rutschman? His walk rate plummeted. But all of his other offensive stats are now better, which is kind of what's happening across the board for the Orioles. And you can really see it specifically with Rutschman, because he's gone to two different extremes when it comes to walks. Now, his strikeouts aren't significantly up. They're up a tiny bit, but not any place where you need to be worried. He still doesn't strike out that much, which is a huge plus. And he's hitting the ball way harder. His average exit velocity is up. His barrel rate is up. His hard hit rate is up almost 10%. It is significantly up. Those are all huge numbers. And here's the big thing for Rutschman. He's attacking more good pitches to hit. And yes, his chase rate is up. His swing and miss rate is up. His strikeout rate is a little bit up, but his swing rate is up from 41 to 48%. He's just swinging more, and guys are throwing him more strikes. Adley has been known to just not swing at the first pitch. He's still not doing it a lot, but now he's knowing, hey, pitchers are just kind of throwing cookies over to me on the first pitch because they know I'm always taking a pitch, and it's generally been strike one. Well, now he knows to attack that pitch a little bit more, and he's doing more damage, and his slugging percentage is up, and he's hitting for a little more power, and everything is working out. And oh yeah, he's now hitting 324 on the season. That's top 5 in the American League. So although the on-base percentage isn't super high compared to his average, when your average is up at 324, you're still getting yourself to first base and sometimes second and third base and all the way around the bases. I don't know if this is a sustainable change for Adley Rutschman because he's been so known for the batter's eye and the walk rates. But the fact that the strikeout rate is still low despite the walk rate plummeting, I will trade doubles for walks. That's what Adley Rutschman is doing. And that's kind of what the Orioles are doing. He is the perfect picture of the changes the O's have made as a team at the plate this season. I mean, he's getting fastballs in the zone and he's driving them. Adley Rutschman is hitting 409 against fastballs so far this year. Like, give him a fastball in the zone, even if it's borderline, he's not going to take it anymore. He's going to drive it the opposite way for a base hit or put it into the gap for a double. It is a different Adley Rutschman. We'll see how it plays out over a full season, but a really, really interesting change that he has made. So I hope you enjoyed that kind of episode. We're going to try to do maybe more of those on some off days as the season goes on, kind of diving into what's making players struggle, what's making players get better, and how it all fits in for the Orioles as this season moves on. We got one more thing to get to finish off the pod coming up next. Just a quick little preview. Beltway battle, Masson Cup, O's and Nats starting tonight. We'll get to it coming up after this. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by DoorDash. Now, Mother's Day is coming up. It is this Sunday, and you can really get anything and everything that you need at DoorDash, because if you want to make your mom smile, you can start Mother's Day with flowers or surprise her with gifts from the brand she loves delivered the very same day with DoorDash. Does she have a sweet tooth? Is she a tech enthusiast, a beauty connoisseur, whatever it is? No matter what she's into, you make her smile with a fruit or flower bouquet, makeup, tech gear, workout wear, and so much more. And you can get 15% off your next order, up to $15, when you spend $15 or more on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now on DoorDash. You just want to go to DoorDash really for everything that you might need for Mother's Day. You just got to use the code LOCKEDONMLB. That is code LOCKEDONMLB. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. So to finish up today's episode, just a quick little preview as the Orioles hit the field again after a much-needed off day on Monday. Not that they were struggling. They were playing great baseball, but it's always nice to get a day off. And now really it kind of feels like, for the Orioles, their, you could say, longest homestand of the year starts tonight, because the actual homestand begins on Friday as the D-backs come into town for 3 this weekend. Then they're hosting Toronto for 3, then an off day, and then 3 at home against Seattle. So it's really right there a 9-game, 10-day homestand. But they have an off day this Thursday, which makes it an 11-day homestand. They're probably at home on Monday because they're only playing in DC, so that's 12 games. And honestly, you got 2 6:45 games just right down the road in Washington, D.C., where the Orioles fans take over that ballpark anyway. So you're kind of looking at like a 14-day quote-unquote homestand for the Orioles. There is no other time in the schedule you can get something that good. And hopefully the Orioles can take advantage. And it will begin tonight, Tuesday night, a 6:45 p.m. Eastern time first pitch for a first of 2 games. Remember, the Orioles will play the next 2 games in DC now, and then later in the year, Nats will come to Baltimore for 2. The Nats have been better than expected this year. They're at 500, 17-17 on the year. They just helped the Orioles out, took 2 out of 3 from the Blue Jays at Nats Park over the weekend, and also had the day off on Monday. Now, the Nats offense hasn't been great. Overall, the 22nd ranked offense in baseball, but they've got some players who are thriving. CJ Abrams finally looking like a star. He's been great. Luis Garcia, their second baseman, who I call the mini Juan Soto because he kind of looks just like him when he's out there on the diamond. He's been amazing too. And a couple of role guys, Nick Senzel and Jesse Winker, have found a home in their first year with the Nats this year and have been pretty good in the lineup. The issue for the Nats is the rest of the lineup has just kind of been abysmal. So you got those four guys producing, and you're getting absolutely nothing from the rest of that team. We'll see how they play offensively against an Orioles starting rotation that is red hot. Bullpen for the Nats been pretty solid. It's kind of been a middle-of-the-pack bullpen. It's Floro, our old friend Hunter Harvey, and then Kyle Finnegan, who are generally closing things out 7, 8, 9. They've all been pretty good. There's some issues in the other parts of the bullpen for the Nats, but they've been solid at the back end. And it's an interesting pitching matchup coming up tonight for game one. Corbin Burns, the Orioles ace, will take the hill, trying to feast on a kind of struggling offense in the Nats. And he will go up against the right-handed reliever, or not right-handed reliever. He used to be a reliever. Now he's back in the rotation. That is Trevor Williams. Williams has had an interesting year. He's got a 2.27 ERA in 32 innings, which looks really good. Only has 22 Ks and 12 walks. That's not great. It's an 89-mile-per-hour fastball that he throws more than any other pitch, and it's not like it has good ride. It's not like he gets strikeouts on it. No whiffs, gets hit hard. It's a really bad pitch. Now, his other pitches, he's got a solid sinker. He's got a pretty good sweeper. I don't understand why Trevor Williams throws this fastball as much as he does, but that thing gets hit hard, and he just doesn't miss bats at all. So it's kind of been a little bit of smoke and mirrors, the 2.27 ERA for Trevor Williams this year. Hopefully that means the Orioles offense, which just put up 11 runs on Sunday, will show why Williams is not nearly as good as a 2.27 ERA would show. And then I will be back on Wednesday recapping game one between the O's and the Nats, getting you ready for the finale of the quick series. That is game two on Wednesday night, getting you any updates you may need, including we got a positive one on Grayson Rodriguez as he comes back to the Orioles rotation, maybe one on Tyler Wells as well, and much, much more. But that's here on tomorrow's episode. Until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.